That's really nice. We can see who's on.
Okay,
Oh, Chris is.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Township Board at 6 o'clock on February 9th, 2022. Go ahead and call the roll, and then we can do the pledge of allegiance. Aldrich,
Yes. Here.
Bickford,
Here.
Helmut,
Here.
Marcy,
Here.
Osmond, here. We have a quorum. Everybody would stand up, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Franco, could you go over the Zoom instructions, please?
Absolutely. Please say your name before speaking and before making a motion. Please mute yourself when you are not speaking. *6 if you are on the phone. Do not click unknown links that may be shared in the Zoom chat. The township does not disseminate information with this function. The meeting is being recorded. Please be respectful of those speaking and do not interrupt. If anyone is disruptive to the point of preventing the township board from conducting business, you will get one warning before being removed from the meeting. If there is a problem with Zoom, the meeting will be reset utilizing the same meeting information. If the meeting is unable to continue, a notice will be issued on the township Facebook page and website. Reminder to board commission members that emailing or texting is not allowed during a public meeting. Please be patient as we are all learning a new system. We will attempt to be as deliberate as possible and get through this as a team. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Franco.
My pleasure.
I would like to thank Jennifer for her willingness to be here and do this today. It's very difficult to run that and this at the same time. So, thank you, Jennifer.
Happy to help.
At this time, if anybody has any changes to the agenda, as I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Support,
Second.
any discussion? Bickford,
Yes.
Marcy,
Yes.
Helmut,
Yes.
Aldrich,
Yes.
Osmond, yes, the agenda is approved as presented. Now we'll open it up to public comments. If there's anybody from the audience that would like to speak on a agenda item and limit your talk to 3 minutes, you can please come to the podium and start your introduction. Say your name and address, please. I saw somebody with their hand up.
It's almost impossible to hear you.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Speak louder.
This isn't on the agenda, so should I go home?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think
I
that,
don't-
like,
where our
that's not
microphone not working.
operable anymore.
Is it?
It does,
It all goes
microphone's
through
not
here.
working, I
Oh,
guess.
okay.
But any of them actually.
But it's being, I'm
Yeah,
always
it's
louder
recorded.
than I should be anyway. Okay, my name is Judith Schneider. I live at 207 North Maple Street. And I missed when this was kind of discussed by the township board, but then it gets sent off to the state or the county concerning Crash Corner, which is this charming little name which Scott Sullivan has decided to give our corner. I did notice in the paper some of the suggestions that would be made, one of which was a light, various other things. As a person who lives there, I would like somebody to actually care what happens to us. I personally feel there were various reasons why we had crashes at that corner. For one thing, Blue Star became a detour because of the work on the interstate. I also believe that if we, like Douglas, had a lower speed limit there, I don't think we'd have so many crashes, and it would be a lot safer for people who need to get out of the businesses and homes that are along Blue Star. But should they put in a light, I know what will happen to Maple Street. And what will happen is that everyone will want to dodge the light. And so what will they do, folks? They will go down Maple Street. And since no one bothers to ever notice if they're speeding down our street, I can assure you of that. I can see that it will be really rather difficult for us. When they redid Culver, Pleasant Street had speed bumps. We were actually the detour. You have no idea how much traffic went down our street. And it is pretty much a small, little residential street. So I would like that to be considered if there comes a point where there are going to be major changes at that corner. That people do live there and that they have a right to live on their little residential side street without it becoming a main thoroughfare. Because nobody wants to stop at the light. They will either speed up to make it, or they will speed up when it changes. And that is going to cause accidents as well. So I don't know what else to say, except that I can just see what's going to happen to us, and I don't think anyone cares about Maple. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judith.
By the way, the agenda is in the tiniest type I've ever seen.
Can I just say something really quick?
Yeah.
Judy, wasn't that it? Judith, are you gonna be here until the end of the meeting?
I can be,
Well,
why?
because I'm gonna talk about it a little at the road commission report, but as you can see, it's kind of at the end of the meeting.
What is the time frame that you're expecting?
Don't know.
We don't, we can't
never
predict
know.
that.
Yeah, sorry.
Stay till then?
Yeah, I suppose.
Or you can watch it, it's being taped.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
You can watch it, it's being taped.
Oh, I hate Zoom meetings. We did those for the in-person. I just hate them.
It's gonna be on our website.
Oh, I
After, yeah.
Is there anybody else that would like to make a public comment?
I can either, if you'd like to stay for this, I can wait till then, or
Well, you can speak now or you can speak later. So,
I'll do my best.
okay, well, you have a different view than I do, so.
Walter Schneider, similar address, same company, 207 Maple. My thoughts tend to be a bit disorganized, so my curiosity is what the township and local residents have as proposals or their point of view on what alternatives might be better suited to the first proposal that they have. I assume a four-way light. Much of what Douglas or Saugatuck used to have, and over later years, I've taken somewhat of an interest in planning the various things online that people have been promoting as alternatives on what we currently live with, countrywide, as it were. And, in regards to, how we move around and where we live, and, transit and so forth. With this particular thoroughfare, with Blue Star, it's an arterial or a collector is, I guess, the terminology, and it really hasn't been developed or hasn't been structured in that way for a good long while. I think Douglas, for whatever reason, came to the conclusion that the way the road was structured did not suit the city and the various turnoffs that were there. My point of view is that Blue Star is, especially from that stretch, even between the two entries into town, don't really fit the 50 mile an hour limit. They don't make many allowances for people turning off at any number of the streets except for right at the cemetery for people heading south. Otherwise, people are often in too much of a hurry, even at the speed limit there. From what I can tell, people aren't really paying attention to where they're going or who's in front of them. It's just
Walter, I don't want
Yeah.
to cut you.
I have to finish that, I suppose. More discussion on locally as to what is conceived for that situation. Anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to make a public comment? Anyone on Zoom? With that, then I'll close the public comment section of the meeting and move on to the consent agenda. These are routine things that take place. Will all be enacted in one motion. No separate discussion of these items, and a separate discussion is required to be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Everybody's had a chance to look at the consent agenda. Any questions for any one item? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll support.
Any further discussion? Go ahead and call the roll then. Aldrich,
Yes.
Marcy,
Yes.
Osmond, yes. Helmer,
Yes.
Bickford,
Yes.
motion carries. We move on to then our guest speaker, our presentation from our previous auditor, Dan.
Thank you, Cindy. Thanks so much for taking this on. I'm sure you can hear me a little better. I really appreciate you inviting me to your meeting. Appreciate even more the relationship we've had with the township for a long time now. It's been well over 20 years that I've been involved that whole time. So one of the things you might hear from your auditors, the people that we work with, I appreciate the assistance that we receive from everybody. And it seems to me that they're all capable as well as always trying to improve. I see that with John and Lori too. So I think that's important for you to know from your auditor. I'll be relatively brief. I always like to talk about 2 or 3 main things, and those are the auditor communications, make a few comments about your financial condition, and then make a few recommendations or suggestions, things like that. Do you all have the financial statements? Okay, terrific. I always like to start on the auditor's report, which is the page immediately after the table of contents. Unfortunately, there's no page number on that. I'm not sure why we do that, but it's on our letterhead. And this is important to us because this is what you hired us to do, to give an opinion on the financial statements. A few key concepts here. First, responsibilities. You'll notice that the first bold heading says management's responsibility. It's sometimes surprising to members of the public that it's actually your responsibility to prepare the financial statements and for internal controls over those financial statements, over the transactions, even though we prepared the document for you. I think that's an important concept. The second bold item says auditor's responsibility. So it's our responsibility to express opinions on the financial statements. That's what you hired us to do. At the bottom of that page are the opinions, and we have said that the financial statements are presented fairly. That's known now as an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion, but far too often in the media, I'll hear that the auditor gave a clean opinion, so everything must be fine. And really, that's not always true. It's typically not true because every audit in the state of Michigan for a government has to be unmodified. The state won't accept your report unless it's unmodified. So what you really want to know is how many corrections did we need to make to those financial statements in order to allow us to give that opinion? And we addressed that in a way in a separate letter. It's not bound in that document. It's a separate letter also on our letterhead. Looks like you have that too. I won't go through that in detail. That letter has probably 7 or 8 things that we're required to put in writing. On the 3rd page, There's a heading called Communication Regarding Internal Controls. It seems like not very long ago, but it's been quite a few years now. We have to put a number of things in writing, and one of those is problems with internal controls. We don't give an opinion on the effectiveness of internal controls, but if we come across problems, we have to put those in writing for all of your citizens and the State Department of Treasury to see. You can see that we've listed one, what we call a material weakness. I didn't come up with that term, so don't blame me. But it's just one item, and it says that we've recorded some material adjustments and helped you prepare your financial statements. I didn't make this rule either, but those who set the audit standards say that if you're having an audit, you better be able to prepare your own financial statements. And oh, by the way, they should be perfect too. To be honest, I think that's a very unfair expectation. If you're a publicly traded company, yes, we would expect that. They have many CPAs on staff. They should hand us the report perfectly. But in your situation, I think that's an unfair expectation. So I think it's important that all of you know that even though we said it's a material weakness, it's something that's required, and we have to put that in writing. So we do list out with those bullet points any material adjustments that we recorded. And they have to do with year-end accruals primarily, recording receivables, payables, and things like that. Your list is actually relatively short. I'm sorry, it's on the third page of that letter.
No, that's.
Sorry,
That looks like something else.
that's okay.
Do not.
Oh, okay. Maybe.
So I think it's important that you know those are the material adjustments that we recorded, but it's a relatively short list. Some of the municipalities I work with, that list might be fairly extensive. So actually, most of the municipalities I work with, we help them accrue receivables at the end of the year. Cash basis is something most people can understand, but unless you've had some accounting training, recording those accruals are a little bit difficult. So I also wanted to point out a couple of those things like prepaids and payables. We've worked with Lori over the last couple of years, and we recorded relatively few of those. I would actually hope to see those go away next year. So I would say that you have a relatively short list. That's the only material weakness or deficiency we reported. Last year, if you go back to last year's letter, it would say that there was a significant deficiency related to the cash reconciliations. That's been resolved. John has worked hard at that and had some assistance during the year from one of our staff members that's not involved in the audit. So that was a significant improvement that we saw this year. And that's all I have on the auditor communications. Just a few comments on the financial condition. The best place to look at that, I think, is on page 13. Page 13 is a balance sheet or a picture at a point in time of your financials. It's as of June 30, the end of your fiscal year. It shows all of your governmental funds. The column to the left is the general fund, your primary operating fund. You can see total assets are a little over $1 million. Less liabilities equals your fund balance. That's the fundamental accounting equation. Assets less liabilities equals equity. Total fund balance is $951,000. The important number is unassigned fund balance. That's about $903,000. And board members often ask me, what's the right fund balance number? There's really no right number, but I look at it as a percentage of your current year expenditures. That number is about 118% of your current year's expenditures. That's a healthy number. It's not excessive. We would say that a good fund balance number would be 25 to 50% of your current year's expenditures, a lot like an individual. If a personal financial planner would tell you, if you have 3 to 6 months worth of expenses in a savings account, you're in good shape. So you're higher than that, which is really good in these financial times. And the other thing that stands out to me, those 25 years I've worked with the township, that's much better than it has been over most of those years for a variety of reasons. So it's really nice to see a healthy fund balance in your general fund.
Hey, Dan, can I ask you a question on that one? Because I was
John,
gonna,
can you be recognized first?
Oh.
Yes, maybe you can talk.
John Helmrich, board
You can
trustee
talk.
and
Go
treasurer.
ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, you meant, right, I'm sorry. Thank you for recognizing me. Even with my haircut. So, and we'll talk more about this later when we do our conference call.
Okay.
But I know there seems to be some school of thought that, because we have felt that when it's positive like that, the 118, that it was a good thing, and you have sort of said that, but others think it better when it's under 100. And I don't.
It
any
really
comments?
varies. If I went to, we work with something like 120
I know.
governments. Every single board or council would tell you a different thing. Every member of that board would tell you something different. I've been at boards where they want 200%, they want 2 years worth of expenses.
Okay.
And I've also been in places where if it's 25%, that's fine.
Okay.
The typical city in the state has about a 15% fund balance. If I were one of your citizens and I saw 3 times or 4 times the current year's expenditures, I'd be saying, why are you collecting my taxes if you're just sitting on that? But I think, I will tell you that 118% is very similar to a lot of governments that I work with. So certainly, I wouldn't say it's excessive at all.
Okay. No, thank you for that, because I think that's how we were thinking. And as you know, we've made significant increases in our investment amounts.
Right.
And I hear like at MMTA meetings, you know, a lot of people say 6 months is enough to have on hand. And obviously, we're higher than that. A lot of that was based on past history and being cautious, but we've been in pretty strong income revenue times of late, which could change, but right now, they're not.
Right. That's a good way to express it, John.
Okay.
I agree that 118% is a good number. It's certainly not excessive in my mind. If you come to the conclusion as a board that
Right.
6 months, or still say 100% is your goal. I work with a couple townships that do that. So any excess over that could be contributed to your defined benefit pension plan. Be
Right.
ready at capital projects funds,
Right.
things like that.
Okay.
So you kind of have to just come to a consensus about what's adequate for you.
Thank you.
Oftentimes, if I work with a small township that just has a general fund, then they might have other needs like roads and fire, things like that. You actually have separate funds for some of those purposes, like the second column shows your road millage has almost $2 million in it. That's really nice to have that healthy amount. You also have more than enough to pay off your sewer debts, which will convert into a capital project fund. And then almost 600,000 in water capital as well. And now you have a couple different capital project funds. The amount assigned for capital acquisitions is 96,878. Not too many townships have set aside money for capital improvements like that. They're starting to. But I would say overall, the general fund, as well as all of the funds of the township, are really quite helpful. Nice to see. I could probably spend a lot more time on your financials, but I don't know that it would benefit you that much. So, one topic of interest is always your defined benefit plan, and the best place to look at that is on page 34. Page 34 has an awful lot of numbers on it. I learned as a church treasurer that the average person can remember 6 numbers on a piece of paper. So there's far too many numbers on here, but just wanted to highlight a couple things. The column to the left, again, is your most recent year, 2021. If you go to near the bottom, really the third number from the bottom is the percentage of funding. It's 54.05%. That's relatively low, but if you look at these years, it's a nice positive trend from 30% in 2016. Every year there's an increase up to 54%. The net pension liability is about $407,000. So that's something that you're working on because you made extra contributions the last couple of years. I would tell you that when I started 20, 30 years ago, the typical actuary would say, if you're 50% funded, you're in good shape. This isn't a liability, it's going to be paid tomorrow, it's going to be paid. But now, because of the concerns about pension plans and in the private sector with things going wrong, you want to see it closer to, doesn't have to be 100% funded, but MERS likes you to be at 80% funded before you can make any changes. So you're definitely making improvements in that. It's nice to see the 54% funding.
And to that point, as you know, this board's made a concerted effort of raising that.
Yes.
I think our goal is sort of to get to 60%, so we're not on the state watch list.
Okay.
It sounds like you'd like to see us aim to get higher than 60.
I think 60 would be a great goal. If you make additional contributions like you have the last 2 years, it
Right.
should be at 60%,
Okay, thank you.
as long as everything else holds true.
Right.
Just a couple of comments. John mentioned earlier that we're going to be talking about maybe making some changes in your chart of accounts and to better reporting and things like that. So we'll be having those discussions. I know ARPA is of great interest to many boards that I work with. When I was here in January, I was going to tell you about a great new thing that was coming up. It's old news now, but this whole loss calculation, revenue loss calculation, I spent far too long helping a lot of people make that calculation. I don't have to deal with that math anymore.
And we didn't have that, so.
Right, yeah, you don't have to worry about it at all. Basically, the 352,000 allocation that you're getting can be spent for anything that's otherwise typically legal in the state. So I think that's great news. So interesting to see how you spend it. That's all I have, but I'd be happy to answer any questions. And I'm always available by phone or email throughout the day.
Any more questions for Dan? Thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for
Thank you
coming
very
back.
much.
Sorry about last month.
I'm with whoever said that they didn't like Zoom meetings. I'm not first.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to our next item of business, which is appointments to the Cal Lake Sewer and Water Authority. We have an application. I think I did see Chris on the line.
Yes, he was it.
So Chris, if you would unmute yourself and introduce yourself to us.
He was.
He was there.
Cover this where I live.
I don't think you are.
Well, Chris did write a nice letter and fill out the application. He's excited about being on the Cal Lake Water Board. I'm excited to be able to have him. So if we can't get through, he probably lost internet connection like happens at my house all the time, but
Where does he live?
I don't know.
Daniel.
He didn't put his.
I don't know why it'd be.
No,
listed, yeah.
we've marked it out for privacy purposes.
Oh,
Yes, and he may,
Go
he may have, he could be on a call.
That's true.
He was
He is,
there, so,
he is
yeah.
on the fire department, so he could be at a fire call. But I would like to appoint Chris Bernhardy to the Cal Lake Water Board. And that is with your consent.
Aye.
are you
Is
making
that a
the motion?
There, no, I'm just making the appointment. Somebody else has to make the
Oh, I
motion
see.
to accept my appointment.
I move to approve the. I tried, I can't get it off. Chris Bernardi to the Kalamazoo Sewer and Water Authority Commission to expire in April 2022.
I'll support.
Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll call the roll. Aldrich,
Yes.
Bigford,
Yes.
Helmrich,
Yes,
Marcy,
Yes.
Osmond, yes. Motion carries unanimously. We can move on to the 2022, excuse me, poverty guideline resolution. I think by doing this by resolution, it can be a multi-year, and we don't have to do it every single year. At our last meeting, we did approve the federal guidelines. So this is just a resolution to formalize that and make it multi-year.
Okay.
which is a good thing.
Yes.
Well, I'd like to move to approve the 2022 resolution of guidelines for applicants requesting consideration for poverty exemption.
Second.
We have a motion and support. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none. Helmrich,
Yes,
Marcy,
Yes.
Osmond, yes. Bigford,
Yes.
Aldrich.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Charter Township referendum. This is something that is a result of our census. They have to certify that we are allowed to become a charter township. And we can do it by resolution, saying, yes, we want to, no, we don't want to, or take no action, and then it will just be dropped. So is there, I don't think we need the legal expense of preparing a resolution with our attorney's office. It would, and very viable option is just to do nothing. So,
May I ask a question?
Yes.
If we do nothing, do they keep doing this every year?
Every 10 years.
census-
Every 10? Oh, along with the census? Oh, okay, that's great.
We could move in that direction at any time if we chose.
I know.
But this, what we're dealing with, as Cindy said, is because of the census.
Right.
No.
required to be published in the paper.
Yeah.
Some people ask me, what are you doing?
You called the office.
I did.
I did. About the-
I got a lot of calls about this one. so-
Really?
Yeah, I did. Several.
So,
It's gotta be public notice.
Mhm.
I'm going to just ask that we accept this as information and move on to our next item. Any objections?
Nope.
Work that up here.
Thank you. Next, we have the Allegan County resolution for the 2005 recycling funding. I'm gonna let Daniel take that one because he knows a lot about recycling and he has some opinions and recommendations for us, but probably we'll just accept that as information as well.
Yeah, I think that that's pretty much accurate, that you should look at this as information. I don't know if we get this every year or every 2 years. But the county did authorize us to add a surcharge to our tax bill of $50 to fund our participation in the Allegan Resource and Recovery and Recycling Program. Essentially what that would give everyone is twice monthly recycling service and access to various household hazardous waste collection events that the county runs. It would require going on the ballot, so it's not that the board could just approve it if they wanted to. You would essentially be approving our attorney drafting ballot language and then appearing on the August ballot. We had been part of the program in prior years in a slightly different structure. It was an optional structure, so the structure that's being presented to us is non-optional. If it passes, every single resident has to pay and has to participate. In previous years, it was optional, that people had opted out. And it got to the point where the monies that were being collected could not cover the cost of the township's participation in the program. And so the township did put it on the ballot to move into a different format. It was on the, I believe on the May ballot and it failed. And it was on the August ballot and it failed, and it was on the November ballot and it failed again. So that's just a little heads up for that. I'm recommending that it takes a lot of work to kind of prepare for this. We could do it in the future, we could revisit it. It's not to say that this is the end all be all, it's a final decision, but I would recommend just accepting it as information and not taking any action. But of course, it's up to the board.
Any objections to just accepting this as information?
No, and I think you did an excellent overview, but sorry.
John, you're gonna be.
I know you told me about this, but I forgot. It was last rejected by the voters by a large margin. And we are still potentially actively about to reignite the Tri-Community Recycling Committee. And I think we have a lot of faith in them. Daniel serves on that as one of our representatives, and it makes sense to me.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Madam Chair, may I have the?
Yes.
Hold on. I keep looking for the button to push to put my hand up. I agree. I just want to say that I agree, and in my head, are these signs going, the public relations campaigns and time and money you would have to spend. But also the recycling group has done so much work. They've done a great job. And I'd like to see how this plays out before we do anything like this.
I just have a quick comment. I mean, parts of it are attractive. The 2 times a month, I know mine's only once a month. The price point is better than what I paid for. But potentially more traffic, especially since we're considering a single hauler, but it's nice to know that it's an option out there for the recycling committee or us to consider, you know, at a later time, so.
Any other comments? Objections to accepting this information? Accept that as information and move on to the proposed update to the personnel policy. And Mr. DeFranco, I'm gonna let you take this one away too.
Okay. When I entered the office, I did get some feedback from staff in terms of our personnel policy. One of the items that was brought up was our inclement weather policy. If you had seen the prior policy, essentially it is up to the discretion of the township manager to make a decision. There was a issue where, well, not an issue, there was, inclement weather occurring, and I had not been really paying attention, and I got a call from staff kind of letting me know and informing me that this was going on and that it might be a problem. And the suggestion was that it might clear up confusion to have closures of the office tied to closures of the Saugatuck public school system, and that would just kind of make it clear for everybody. And I think it's a little more objective than it being at the discretion of the manager. In addition to tying it to that, I also kind of added a few other items. I added a plan for how staff would be informed of closures, a plan for how the public would be informed of closures, and an option for employees to decide if they want to work at home if they have the necessary resources to do so. There is one little thing that I would add to the language that I supplied to you. So this is on page 83 of the packet. It's the last full sentence. Right now it reads, if an employee lacks the necessary resources to conduct their work from home or elects not to conduct work from home, the employee must utilize available time, paid time off. I would probably add in order to be paid. They may elect not to be paid that day if they're hourly. So I would just make that little addition. Also something else that I want to point out is that in this policy, I did not distinguish between exempt and non-exempt employees. We have only one exempt employee, and I just thought that it made more sense to, and I thought it was a little more clear to treat all the employees in the same way in the event of an early office closure. So if you want to change that, we can do it by the, forgetting the term here now, the Fair Labor Standards Act, so we can distinguish between exempt and non-exempt. I just thought it might be appropriate not to do so, but that's up to you. And there's also, in addition to that, there's also a recommendation to update our recognized holiday schedule. There are 2 holidays that we do not presently recognize, but the county recognizes, those being President's Day and Indigenous Peoples' Day. I did reach out to the city of Saugatuck. Their holiday schedule is slightly different than ours. They recognize one holiday less than us, but they also recognize a holiday that we don't recognize. Douglas is in the process of actively revising their holiday schedule, and I imagine that it might also align with Allegan County, but we've yet to see what they've decided. So that's a little bit of the background of what the other communities are doing.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Mr. DeFranco? Stacy?
I was just curious about Saugatuck and Douglas. Do they close when the schools close too, or?
That's a good question. Both of them, it's up to the discretion of the manager.
I don't know. Sometimes you know how the schools close and an hour later,
Yeah.
everything's plowed and it seems like they could have gone. I almost feel I personally would have liked the office coordinator to make that decision instead of the school. That's my opinion, but I'm not sure if anybody agrees with that.
This really piggybacks on that. Is say that does happen, can somebody just say, can John say, you know what, or to heck with this, it's much easier for me to go in the office. Does that prevent them from coming in, say at 9 or 10 or 11 when everything is cleared up and, you know, maybe the forecast didn't come to fruition? Does this prevent somebody from saying, no, I'm just gonna go in, I'd rather go in than work from home?
No, I don't think any of the language prevents anyone from coming into the office. I mean, the situation that we had the other week was that the weather was fairly bad on the east side of the township. So I was experiencing snow, but staff members on the west side were not experiencing snow. We decided to do a later opening. I just kind of pushed through and went to the office anyway. But that was just kind of our experience, and we decided to, you know, just let's open a little later. But yeah, there's nothing in the policy that would prevent a staff member, if they wanted to, from coming in the office and working out of the office.
I do remember once they closed from water spouts. The school was closed at the lake and everybody ran right out to the lake to look at the water spouts or whatever they're called, tornadoes or whatever. I don't know, I just feel I would rather you as your, whatever your title, office coordinator, right?
Yeah.
I feel comfortable in letting you make the decision, but it's up to everybody, of course.
John?
As someone who came into the office 2 weeks ago when we were closed and I hadn't got the memo, where is everyone? Was like, oh, it's nice and quiet. I also think just, we're so small. And it just seems like an extra burden on the manager or the coordinator. Places I've worked in West Michigan before went by the school district. You can still come in. Yeah, that day in particular, we didn't have snow over here, but everyone had it on the other side of Old Allegan Road. And also related to that, I support not making the distinction between exempt and non-exempt, because we're so small.
Okay.
If we had 10 or 50 people, we don't. We have 4 now and 2 contractors, and we communicate very well. And I'm for simplicity.
If you were to decide, you know, to adopt this with the schools closed and it turns out to be a nice day and everybody comes in, would you unlock the door for the public to come in, or would you still keep it closed?
I mean, it's an interesting thought. I mean, what I could do is I could revisit this and I could add in a little more discretion. So like, for instance, when the schools were closed, we decided not to close. My decision was not to close for the day, but to do a later opening. So maybe we have something built in like that, you know, the office will close in the morning in the case that the school district closes, but it's up to the discretion of the manager if we're going to open the office later in the day. So it gives it a little more flexibility.
I don't know, you know what my point is, how, you know, everybody like, you can't get out, and then an hour later it's sunny and the roads are fine, and you know,
It works.
I like that idea, I really do. I would be
So
about that.
I would then entertain a motion to approve the updated personnel policy with Daniel presenting amendments to that section on inclement weather.
Oh, okay.
Was the-
I move to approve the adoption of the updated personal policy handbook with the exception,
With the condition
with
that,
the condition that Daniel's can use his discretion
and presents it to us at the next
at the
meeting.
next meeting.
Do I have support?
I'll support.
Have motion and support. Is there any further discussion? I'll call the roll. Aldrich?
Yes.
Marcy?
Yes.
Helmert?
Yes.
Bigford?
Yes.
Osman, yes. Motion carries unanimously. Drain petition, drain district petition. This was kind of complicated and technical, so I'm going to defer to Mr. DeFranco.
Yeah, and it is technical, and I did rely on Dana to help me write this memo. So I think that you all remember that you did pass or you approved that development agreement with Ivy House. So essentially what they uncovered was that their stormwater plan was inadequate. There was some amendment to it, so they're increasing the size of the retention pond to handle more stormwater. but they do need access for overflow into the drain. And that would require the establishment of a drain district. That is a complicated process. It is a fairly significant burden for either a private property owner or a private business. And it's something that we as a municipality, I think, can take on in a more efficient and timely manner. By doing that, we do kind of release Ivy House of a bit of a burden. I think we all know that they're really itching to get open. I think we're really excited to have them on the corridor. They're a great addition to this new economic, this economic development and this business corridor we're developing. So essentially, we would take on the responsibility of establishing this drain district. Now, the first component of that would be to ask the county and petition them to begin the process of establishing this drain district. That comes at a bit of an administrative cost, somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000. So that would be the first step, and that would be the motion that you would be making tonight. I did include next steps just so you had an idea of what would happen after. I'm going to kind of read it because it is technical and it's specific. So following a decision from the, to move forward, the township will have to notify the drain office. The drain office will then proceed with preparing the application, resolutions, and petitions that would come before the board at a future meeting sometime in March or April. I think Dana's hoping that it would be for the March meeting, so this would move fairly quickly. If the board acts on these documents that we receive from the county or the drain office, we'll then hold a public meeting and notify the affected property owners in the area. And this would occur sometime in May and July. So just to give you an idea, this area that we're talking about is Blue Star Highway, both sides of the road, Old Allegan Road to, I believe it's Old Singapore Trail, which is a few of those residential properties north of Pennyroyal. So it is a sizable area. They can't guarantee exactly what the area is going to look like, but they do have an interest in including more property owners than not, because there is going to be some sort of a cost. So after notifying affected property owners, there will be this public meeting, which is called a Board of Determination meeting, and there will be an independent board which will determine whether or not this area does warrant a drain commission. Assuming the project is determined to go forward, the drain office will complete the establishment process and may proceed with a construction project to regrade ditches, lower culverts with costs assessed to the district. So that cost is going to be divided up and paid by property owners within that new drain district. We will also pay a percentage of that. And that's going to be around $20,000. Dana is estimating, our engineer is estimating that that project would cost about $100,000. We could, on one hand, we could just kind of ignore it and say, if it floods, it floods. That's a little irresponsible. I think our engineers thinks that, I think the county thinks that. But the kind of the long and the short of it is, if we want to see economic development or business development along that part of Blue Star Highway, they are dealing with stormwater management issues, and this drain district is going to be necessary for any new businesses coming into that area. So it's not really specific to Ivy House. It's just kind of Ivy House's bad luck in, triggering this and bringing light to the fact that we do need additional infrastructure for stormwater on that section of Blue Star Highway.
Thank you, Mr. DeFranco. Is there any questions about the drain district? I think the motion before us tonight is whether or not to proceed to petition the county to establish the drain district. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Can I make a motion?
Yes.
I move to approve the authorization of the County Drain Commissioner's Office to prepare the necessary application and petition documents needed to start the process of establishing a county drain in the area of Blue Star Highway between roughly Old Allegan Road and Old Singapore Trail.
Thank you. Is there
I'll
support?
support.
We have a motion and support. Is there any further discussion?
I just have one little comment.
Okay,
It's not in the next steps, but it will be a big step that falls upon me. Because should this go through, this is adding a new drain assessment district on taxes. I'm not sure yet which fiscal year that would occur. But
right.
we'll deal with it.
Yep.
It'll be a first time for me because we do have several that are in existence, so that's all.
Okay, any other discussion? I'll go ahead and call the roll. Marcy,
Yes.
Helmrich,
Yes,
Bigford,
Yes.
Aldrich.
Yes.
Osmond, yes. Motion carries unanimously. Parks and environmental projects outline for new standard. Mr. De-
I think that's, let me.
Yes, this is the treasurer.
Okay.
All right, this is just an FYI and to share with you a little brief history. This goes back to last summer when New Standard, the marijuana retail establishment by the interchange next door, across the street from Burger King and Quickview. The CEO let us know at the ribbon cutting that they like to give back to communities. And they've been very active in that, especially in park/environmental projects. They gave a lot of money to the Detroit River Walk, which is won awards nationwide. So it's like, oh, okay. So there were a couple casual conversations. And then they sort of escalated when New Standard came back to us and said, so what are you asking for? And it was sort of a chicken, egg, cart, horse, like, well, are you talking $5,000 or 500,000? And they were like, well, what do you want? What do you need? So we put some heads together that included Trustee Aldrich, myself, John Vanderbeek, because of his trail involvement and being on the rural character. And were you in the initial?
Yes.
No, okay, I thought so. So we got to a point where the document in here that we have shared with New Standard for their feedback. I won't go through the detail, but the headings are, we suggested perhaps upgrades to River Bluff Park. Then there was talk of the construction of a cross-country course near the existing dog park, as we heard from the coach, I guess, last month. And then there is the issue of tree planting along I-196, which is related to the noise reduction efforts we're hoping to do. And then park improvements at Township Hall. We have a lot of land here. There's potential landscaping that we could desire to have. And then also relative to potential renovations of the hall, why don't we explore powering this building on solar? So then we had a meeting with the #2 guy at the Outdoor Discovery Center with the representative from New Standard, just to get back and forth feedback. Outdoor Discovery Center was very excited when they saw our flat roofs, and they've got quite a history of, I mean, they're powered 40% at the Outdoor Discovery Center by solar on their property. So that's kind of where it got to. Then we said, next step, let's get the New Standard people to go to Outdoor Discovery Center, take a tour, see what they do. They've got some wonderful recreational areas that are environmentally friendly. And that's where we're at right now. I took this list 2 weeks ago to the Parks Commission. Again, I had talked with some of them individually, just to let them know, because again, none of us, I don't want anyone getting too excited, because again, we don't know the parameters. It does seem to be moving forward towards something, and that's where we're at.
Great update. Thanks, John.
Great.
You're welcome.
I have just one.
Abby?
I went over the packet materials with Mr. DeFranco, and this came up at this time, so I'll share it now with you, John and Stacy, since you guys are involved, and Jim as well. I just wonder if there's any conflict of interest or any legal ramifications of getting donations from a business owner, business in the township, and would they have to potentially go through something different? Like maybe they have to give to the bike trail, like Friends of Blue Star. But I think a good place to start with that is just with the MTA and ask them. I'm sure it's been done or been tried to attempted to be done. And then maybe, of course, get our legal counsel involved. Because we're all about, yeah,
Yep.
improvement of our parks and our township hall, that just kind of came to my attention, like, oh, that could be a problem, so.
No, that's a great question, and it's been brought up to our
Okay.
attention. And I agree, we're gonna contact the MTA.
They,
Because
they have been contacted, so I asked them, what is an appropriate
Right.
way to deal with, potential donation from a private business, so waiting to hear back from them.
Oh, okay.
Okay, excellent.
No, because, and I've said, I think we discussed this. It could very well be that it's more appropriate to funnel the funds to a nonprofit. Maybe it is fed through Outdoor Discovery or another entity. So we're aware of that. It's a great question, and
Stacy?
I did notice, I think in the paper somewhere, I read that Green Coy's giving money to the improvement of the Douglas area. I don't know what you call it there, the revision then
Mhm.
to help fix that over there. So they're doing it over
Right.
there, so.
no,
it must not
we'll
be-
sort that out.
Yeah,
And I
okay.
think we've just felt at this, maybe if we're getting closer, it's not too early to seek legal counsel, but we certainly will,
Thank you.
unless they say it's only $5,000. Thank you, Abby.
Okay. Thank you, John. Thank you for asking questions. And we'll accept that as information and move on to number 8, formation of the committee to oversee office redesign. I think we have some people that should be involved in that. Daniel DeFranco would be one that I would like to see on that committee. John Helmrich, because he's here in the office and he knows the business flow and how things go. And Stacy, I think it would be appropriate for you to be on that committee because you deal with, you've dealt with interior design.
Mhm.
Also, one more would be Becky Israels, because Becky is very familiar with office redesign. So I would entertain a motion if there's no disagreement that those would be the appropriate people.
Can I make
You
one
can make
comment
a
first? Just that Jackie,
She doesn't have time.
she does, actually, she was frustrated. So she would really like to be a part of it. Doesn't have to be on the committee, but
As
If
a
you-
resource,
as a resource after probably the second week in February. Right? No, March.
Yeah, we're there now.
Yeah, sorry, March. So I wanted to let you all know.
That's good to
that
know.
would be good. It should be a great resource for that.
She is.
So, I would entertain a motion.
I will move to appoint Israel's Helmrich, Aldrich, and DeFranco to the advisory committee for the township office redesign.
Support.
I'll support.
We have a motion and support. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Bickford.
Yes?
Marcy.
Yes.
Osmond, yes. Helmrich.
Yes,
Aldrich.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
just one quick comment.
Yes.
We did have an initial meeting, I guess, last week with the 2 representatives from Havel Marsh. Was it the 3 of us? I forget.
It was the 4 of us.
Yeah, we were all here.
There, okay. But I just want to share with my colleagues that they were very excited and relieved, and they both kept saying more than once, they had never worked with a client on a project like this where they were only dealing with one person. It was always a committee. And I assured them we weren't talking like 7 people. We don't want to slow things down, but it really felt like a healthy restart button and do it. Thank you.
Okay, so we had a motion and support that we call. Let's use it after roll call comment. Can't remember. I think so. I think I marked it.
No, I think we're ready to move on, right?
You know, some of this stuff we could be doing by voice vote. if you could-
Well, that-
if you
I
want to go
I
out,
didn't want to say
The
that.
meeting, I was like, maybe something.
In person, we don't have to do all roll calls.
Yes.
Just resolutions we need to do.
Right.
Branding discussions under old business number 9-1. Does anybody have an update for us?
I do have an update. Now, this was a late addition, so it may not be in your printed packets, but on the upper corner, I printed the memo and also it's the packet that's got the paperclip. And then it has the options for you. So at the prior meeting, you made a motion to have Clerk Bigford go back to the local design team and ask to see a modification of option 2B to see it from the kind of like monochromatic all blue rainbow to seeing it colored. And they did just that, and it's before you, and they have them right next to each other. So it is up to you to decide if you want to go forward with the logo. And if you want to go forward with the logo, you seem to have honed in on option 2B. And with option 2B, we have two color choices.
I like, I really like the one that has the color of the rainbow, and I didn't think I would.
This is 2B. Sorry.
That's okay. I did not think I would like the colored version, and you had mentioned it being busy, but the colors that they chose, to me, really tied the whole thing together. So that's where I stand.
And I'm sorry.
One of the staff from Creative Concepts did want to go on record saying that they advise against the colored rainbow. I like Brenda was pleasantly surprised that I don't think it's too busy. They said it's visually noisy, it doesn't offer balance and symmetry, but I am pleasantly surprised that I like it and it doesn't seem so. That's just my.
I just have a clarification. You said there's two options for 2B,
Yes.
and I'm not clear.
One is
Maybe I'm
says
colorblind.
original.
That's considered part of 2B. Oh,
This is all blue.
right.
And
No,
this is
okay.
color.
I thought that was the original. Okay, never mind.
That was,
Well, I like the multicolored. Can I ask questions now or after we vote?
We can ask questions now, and you can have discussions after you make the motion, so
Let me
ask a question now.
ask my questions. And I guess this is to Abby and Stacy and Daniel. Assuming we pass approval tonight, and maybe we don't know the details here, but are they still engaged with us for the other deliverables? And formatting this to fit on a business card because it's vertical, our cards now are horizontal. Getting this on our letterhead, on our email signatures, on the website. I just want to make sure there's that they're doing that, because if not,
My understanding is they give it to us and then, the website people, it's like ready, ready to wear.
so they don't
ready to
help
go.
us implement this.
I don't think so. I don't think that was
So
part of
what's the plan
contract.
on that?
I don't know that there is one, but I don't believe it was ever part of the contract for them to do the work of, putting it
They
on
have a lot of
business
money.
card for us.
But there's a lot that
understood
has to be translated.
I understand that the deliverables that they were giving to us were the different PDFs.
Okay.
So we could put them on whatever we wanted to,
All right.
and they would be consistent in size, so they would change their, if the tree wouldn't get. That's what I understood.
All right. Well, let's figure that out then.
do we want to hold just to double check with them? Do you feel?
I don't see any. I don't see.
I asked John.
There's
Do,
two questions.
I mean, I feel that I understood it as it was, we get it, it's ready to go for any type
Right.
of,
Application.
but if, do we want to double check that just to make sure, can we vote on it and then?
We're just voting on the,
I think
the option two. We
Oh,
can-
that's-
we're-
Anybody
we're
can
right.
look at the contract and try to interpret what actually we get, but I'm almost certain we get.
I think so too.
Here, you apply it, it's ready to go.
Yeah.
Is there anybody that would like to make a motion?
I will, I'll move to approve the new option 2B as the new township logo design.
I'll support.
Okay, We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Bickford,
Yes?
Aldrich.
Yes.
Helmrich,
Yes,
Marcy.
Yes.
Osmond, yes. Motion carries unanimously. We are done with our old business and we can move on to reports.
Yes.
I want to make one comment though. I thought I saw Chris Bernhardt back.
He was for a moment, but I don't know if he still is. Let me see.
Yes, he is.
There he is.
There he
Oh,
is.
there.
Yeah.
Oh, he has his
Sorry
laugh.
about that. Sorry about that. I got dumped real quick. The-
So what we did, Chris, is we did appoint you to the Cal Lake Water and Sewer Authority. So you are now an official member of that board. And
Oh,
Daniel will make sure that they have your contact information so they can include you in all their future meetings.
well, I appreciate that very much. Is there any questions that the council had for me?
I don't think so. I
No?
think you did a very nice cover letter and
Yeah.
a very nice application, so we were able to move even though you got dumped.
Yeah.
No. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I'm excited to help the best of the communities and, make some changes and let's get some stuff done.
Thank
Excellent.
you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
congratulations.
Hey,
Good luck. Good luck.
thanks.
Okay, we have reports. And in order to help streamline our meetings in the future, I'm going to ask that reports be submitted in writing. I have a very good mentor on this. She's done a great job. So if we submit our reports in writing, that doesn't mean we can't talk about them. We can still touch on the highlights. If they're submitted in writing and part of the packet, then they're on the record and not just on the recording. So everybody can read the reports in advance, and if they have questions for the author, they can ask them in advance of the meeting. And then if they want to continue to ask them at the board meeting, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yes,
Ask a question. Would this be a possibility? Couldn't you just combine it with the open board report so that they're included? But if the board at their point, when they talk, they could just include the points or in order to streamline it?
I'd still like to have them in writing.
Well, no, yes, that too.
Okay.
That's
so
too, but
submit
then
your
they can-
report and-
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can do that. Everybody, almost everybody has a board that they can report on.
Yes.
So, Stacy?
If one report that I really feel that we get a lot out of is actually the planning commission report, because
yeah.
that affects us in such a, down the road type of thing that's one I really enjoy hearing what John has to say. So that's the one I would really feel that we have to, if we can keep.
Well, like I said, he can see
Yeah,
the report in
right.
writing and we can get the highlights.
Okay.
We don't,
Yeah.
yeah,
All right.
just John.
No, and I applaud you because everyone used to submit them in writing and they were in the packet.
Uh-huh.
And then that changed, so I think
Oh,
that's a
okay.
welcome
Yeah, okay,
return.
Great idea.
But certain ones, treasurer's report is required legally,
Oh,
and I'll talk fast, but
Okay, so
unless
then
you have questions.
for our next meeting, we'll have our report submitted in writing.
Mhm.
I did want to talk about that before just
Right.
unilaterally changing it. So let's go ahead with the treasurer's report.
Okay, thank you. All right, so our general fund bank balance as of February 1st is holding steady at $1.75 million, flat to January. General fund revenue increased, it's 11% ahead of budget. Expenditures are 5% below budget. That's a good balance. State revenue sharing and annual marijuana licenses are running at about 2 times or better the budgeted amounts for this period. And we continue, most importantly, to have no departmental spending overages to address with any adjustments. Winter tax season, I think everyone knows this, deadline is next Monday. It's been heavy duty and I really want to thank my deputy because there'll be even a bigger crash coming in the next few days. Thank you, Brenda. But disbursements in the consent agreement, because I have to spell this out. Winter tax payout totaling $1.27 million has been made. And we are now starting to pay Saugatuck schools. We've made up that deficiency from the overcollection in the summer. On the investment front, we're at just about $2.5 million total. 175,000 of that is where we put our ARPA funds. So that will probably come out over time. I am late. I said this before. Supposed to give a quarterly, very detailed report to you, but I've been revising the chart. I've been having conversations with our two financial advisors to clarify some terms, clearing up the issue. They were sending our interest payments directly into our general fund bank account, which is not where I think it should be, because it's part of the investment package. So I'll have a much more detailed report and I will circulate it. I'm not going to wait for the next board meeting because it is late. And then I'm going to ask for Bigford to work with me, because I really think in March we should probably make a couple more investments, because our fund balance is high and our bank account is high. Auditor issues, Dan gave a great report. Daniel and I will be working with him and getting Daniel in the loop to understand some of the things like the new chart of accounts that the state's imposed on us, and how we classify and collect revenue for the annual marijuana licenses. We're also going to start getting state revenue sharing on that. I'm told it could be around the first payment around $38,000. Those have to be segregated in their own general ledger number, and we don't have that set up yet. Fiscal 2023 budget, it's not till July 1st, but I'm going to indoctrinate Daniel to the extent I can, and perhaps seek some outside advice from MMTA to start this plan. We don't have to start it yet. We're not going to address it in next week's workshop. Let's see. No, that's what I mentioned, the workshop. There we go. That's my report.
Wow, can I make one comment? John, as you probably know from my old days, banking days in another life, I've watched these reports, and since you've been on board, it's just gotten better and better and better. And I just wanted to acknowledge all the work that goes into that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
No, I
we're in a
appreciate
really
that.
good
I
place.
appreciate that. So,
Thank you, Brenda. Is there any
I
other-
feel better now. I'm always stressing about something.
Yeah.
Any other questions for John and Daniel on the budgeting process? Our next quarterly workshop is Wednesday.
Oh, good, I was gonna ask that.
I was going to mention it in my board meeting.
Okay,
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Order for-
okay.
We'll move on then. Our first committee report is from the road commission.
Yes. So I wanted to let you know, give you the updates. Have you seen the speed signs that have been installed? There are 2 new speed signs right before and after the Allegan and Blue Star Highway intersection. And I will tell you that a few days ago, when the snow was really bad, I had someone in a huge white SUV pass me in a really bad spot. But anyway, he saw that sign, and it doesn't tell you to slow down. He saw it and he hit the brakes, and we both arrived at Old Allegan Road at the same time. But it does appear to me that people are paying attention. So that's number 1. The next step, and I wanted to firm this up with Craig this week, and Daniel and I will work on that, is he also wanted to make the 2 stop signs so that they light up and there's flashing lights, and remind people that the traffic on Blue Star does not stop. So that's number 2. Here's what the commission has come up with. We did have that test. They did a study, and it warranted a stoplight or a roundabout. What they would like to do, their preference is the roundabout for safety reasons, for a whole bunch of reasons, but that's going to take some time. So that's why I'm interested in what we can do in the interim. We would not pay anything for that roundabout. It would all be grant money, and it would be the road commission's responsibility to apply for those grants. You talked about the speed on Blue Star. We don't want to do a speed study on Blue Star because
Yeah.
what they do is they evaluate the speed people are going. And we risk the fact that the speed limit could go up.
Yes.
So we
Yeah.
do not want to do that. We don't want them to come back to us and say 60 or 65 miles an hour. So that's,
They're not allowed to consider any other variables like housing or congestion or any, just how the speeds are.
not in the speed study, but in this study, they did take other things into consideration. It wasn't based, our getting warranted for these options wasn't based on crashes either. It was based on, if I remember correctly, the amount of traffic, how bizarrely that intersection was designed.
What's all firmed up?
Yeah, so that is that. I can't think if I talked about that. I really wanted the light because it would be more expedient. It would be quicker than this, but we're still working on
It
some
would be
other
permanent. I would imagine it would end up being a permanent fixture. It took I almost feel it took generations, sorry.
Yeah.
It took generations for Saugatuck to come to the conclusion that it didn't need a stoplight.
Yeah, but we're not there now,
Yeah.
and the road commission is great to work with.
Yeah.
We may not always agree with them, but they're the subject matter experts. And they've been great. So I do want to we will talk to Craig Atwood about the possibility of interim, but I want to see how these things, how they help, if they help. So that's where we are now. We are very, very aware of it. I live on right off of Old Allegan, so does Daniel. I probably at least 3 or 4 times a day go through that intersection. I don't like it. Sometimes I'll go up to north and then go south or go into town that way rather than crossing it. So believe me, we are on this. Something is going to change, and I don't want to wait until somebody gets severely hurt or dies because of a crash there.
There wasn't much information on the various accidents there. I've walked that area for other reasons from time to time, and the amount of debris and where it is suggests, where it's usually involved.
Yeah, and the fire department has let us, they've given us the statistics on crashes, and the fire department is very supportive this time around. It wasn't the same before, so some things have changed that have caught the attention of other people and other citizens like you, kind of along your stretch, closer to town. They've heard some of the accidents, and they've talked to me. They've come to me to say, I know I don't live in the township, but you have to do something about this. So I just wanted you to know that we're very aware of it, and we're getting a lot done.
Is there someone to communicate with or are they essentially closed to suggestions or?
No, send them to me. I'm Brenda Marcy, and I'm on the, if you look at the contact list and you see the emails, send it to me and I can pass everything on to to Craig Atwood.
Yeah.
Or have Daniel participate in that.
It's fascinating to hear what.
So look for those
initially
signs.
recommended,
Yeah,
but,
look, yeah.
I think there are.
Could I ask a question? Could I ask a question now, or do I have to wait for the public comment?
Normally, we don't answer them either way, but
I'm just
Madam-
wondering if they
Yes,
will
go
take into
ahead. If you have a
account-
question for Brenda, just,
go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes,
we
just a-
could
okay.
email it.
Okay, I'm just wondering if you're going to take any into consideration what happens to the people who live around there and not just.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yes, and we rely on people to be vocal and tell us, what they're feeling. So what you did tonight, that's great. But I just wanted you to know that everything is being considered.
Okay, I appreciate your input.
Yeah, and I understand your point about using that as a shortcut.
It will,
I will
trust me.
present that to them as well. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
All right.
All right,
Thanks for waiting, thanks for waiting.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
okay. Fire board, we have a whole packet of statistics.
Yeah, they did, that's includes the year on for the
Yeah, I
whole,
like it.
yeah, so take a look at that, please, and when you
Yeah.
get a chance. And we met in person January 17th. The chief was planning on at that meeting to introduce us to Michelle Green, who is his new administrative assistant, but she got called out on a call, so I haven't met her yet. There was a report by Chief Janik about the indemnification agreement that we voted to sign. There was an update from the parade security and ad hoc committee consisting of Chief Janik, Chief Steve Kent, Lieutenant from the Allegan County Sheriff's Office, Mike Eats, is that it? Jane Verplank and Dan Fox. We had an update about the traffic study at Old Allegan and Blue Star and the intersection of Blue Star and Lake Street. We authorized the fire staff to purchase a Lucas 3 chest compression system for $16,000, which $18,000 was budgeted in the capital plan. And this is to replace the Lucas 1 that was 7 years old and had exceeded the useful life of 5 years. That Lucas will be retained on the second medical response vehicle for now.
Thank you. Any questions for Stacy? Okay, planning commission, Mr. Helmer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And before I do planning commission, they weren't on the list this month, but Kalamazoo Lake Harbor Authority did submit a December report that was never shared with us. And there's 2 items I just want us to be aware of. This is not for action, it's for information. But the Harbor Authority has been discussing new lighting on the Blue Star Bridge, which comes at a cost. No action is being taken now. They're not meeting again until April. And the way it works, if they vote, if the 2 cities want to pay for something and we don't have to. It's not democracy. We can all vote to do it or not. So I just wanted, it should be on our radar. The other thing too that had been agreed to previously was that we would use the township hall to host their meetings, which are sometimes monthly, sometimes they're every other month. Just that has an implication for staff and how we manage that. There's traffic issues when they meet downtown, et cetera. So that had been committed to them, along with a commitment that our staff would be the secretary and take minutes. So that's probably something we need to be aware of. We may not agree to that now. It was agreed to previously. Just want us all to be aware of that. And again, they're not meeting again until April, so. But I have asked Mr. DeFranco to reach out and meet the chair of the Harbor Authority and discuss this with the 2 managers. Now, turning to Brenda's favorite report. Planning Commission met on January 24th. All right. And I'm just going to do the highlights. You don't need to know about the public comment and all that. So there were 2 main issues at this meeting. There was a public hearing for a company called Be Positive Best Buds. It's a special use applicant for a new adult use marijuana retailer. It's on a parcel just to the south of Overijssel Hardware along Blue Star Highway. The applicant was present and the approval was granted 6-0. Then there was a site plan review for 6 new commercial warehouse buildings off of 135th Avenue, west of Blue Star, owned and built by Mr. Scott Boscraft. He attended by Zoom from Mexico. This was a long public hearing, about an hour and a half that went on. You're used to that, but it was long for us. Upshot here was Planning Commission felt that the plan was very incomplete. Did not answer a lot of questions and issues relating to having bathrooms and kitchens. There's been reports of some of the existing warehouses, people are sleeping in them, which was not allowed in the C3 commercial district. A lot of discussion on that. Also, this extension plan does touch property that includes critical dunes and requires an Eagle state permit. Renee Wells spoke very eloquently, saying that in the future, we would prefer when that is an issue like it was with the Van Horn property, get your Eagle permit first, then come ask for us. So this went on, but it was It was engaging and informative. We voted to postpone action. Not necessarily table it, postpone it and request more information from the applicant. We acknowledged that we had accepted the historic district report. Thank everyone for the information, but we, the board, asked for more detail, follow-up from planning commission on potentially extending the natural river overlay district. So that was communicated to them. Update on the 3 advisory committees, which were no longer called special committees. We were MTA again, said these are really advisory committees. So we made that name change. Told them about Mr. DeFranco, so being with us now. And then this is important, I think. There was a proposal submitted by the Outdoor Discovery Center to advise the township on issues relative to reclaiming and restoring land use for mining purposes. Separately, we've entered into that agreement. It's what it's only, is it?
$750.
Yeah, so that did not require board approval, but we've engaged them. And again, the point is not just about the old Allegan site. We need to know this, what are the best practices? And Renee Wells endorsed this idea. So that is moving forward. And we next meet on Monday, February 28th.
Great.
Any questions? Thank you.
Parks Commission, Mr. Siri.
Yeah, I'll go over some of the things we talked about and a couple of things we've done. We voted to buy, we've had a lot of discussion over the last year or so about benches. We voted to buy a Poly Products bench. It'll say Saugatuck Township, and we'll place it here where the trees are, in the beginning of our new pocket park, or whatever evolves there. Hopefully the bench will arrive at the same time the trees leaf out. And if they don't, we can blame our guy that's in charge of the water.
We'll discuss that later.
Both of us.
Yeah.
I think they'll do all right. The other thing is, as far as the new standard, and a fella named Aaron, I think, who was sort of their lead guy, we had been talking about the dog park, and we had decided to hire a landscape architect who would develop the plan for that. We felt like we needed to go ahead with that, with the goal of having something started by this spring. I understand that new standard is going with the Outdoor Discovery Center. So I'm concerned that the Outdoor Discovery Center may come up with a plan that's different than our landscape architecture comes up with. And I know you just sent out a letter to request an estimate.
You kind of jumping ahead of the game with that.
Well, I know, but I want to keep these things in mind. Because I also understand that the way the funds would be allocated would be, the new standard folks might sort of do the project and not funnel the money through the township.
I don't think that's how they are.
I'm not sure, I'm picking up a lot of different people that I talk to, different conversations. So I just want you folks to be aware of it, that we don't want to be doing the same thing and paying for it.
No, well, we don't either.
Okay.
And it wouldn't happen.
And
I think we're all connected enough.
right, yeah, and I depend on Daniel to keep all these
Right,
balls.
exactly.
Because some of the things are not parks projects, they're like planting the trees.
Right.
So we would not necessarily be involved in that. And I guess this is a topic we really haven't talked about. If we do set up a little pocket park out here, does it become the Parks Commission responsibility? Or is it just you folks take care of it?
Right.
And that's a topic discussion we could have.
Yep. Good question.
The other point I wanted to make is that our budget, we decided to have a special meeting a week from today to work on our budget. And we want to have to John a final budget for our March meeting, which we changed the date, that's March 16th. So that's delayed a couple of weeks. So that's our goal. But the thing we would have to consider is if something happens from some of the money from New Standard, if, and just use an example, a bathroom is built out by the dog park to facilitate a cross-country track, then we would have to consider that in our maintenance budget. And since in our maintenance budget, our whole budget next year runs into the middle of next year. So we can't really anticipate that. So the only thing I can think of, we might have to come to you folks at some point in the future with a budget resolution to say, we need another $10,000 to maintain something that's built at the dog park. So we're gonna do our budget without trying to assume any of these things that might happen in the future. So that's our goal, is to have a budget, a rough, close draft ready for March.
No, and I applaud you. If you have it in March, that's fabulous, because it hasn't happened that way in the past. And that's great.
The other thing we had talked about, the dump site, we talked to Dana and he said, you folks need an environmental assessment of the site before we proceed with any ideas. And that had been floated as an idea to extend the cross-country track, because if we had a cross-country meet, we would just have to close that road and the runners could run across the road, and there's quite a bit of area back there, and you wouldn't have to go over the hill where those vent pipes are. We're gonna delay that a little bit because we wanna concentrate on trying to get the dog park area finished to the point where it can be used. So we tabled that idea until sometime in the future. So I guess that's, any questions or any thoughts? We certainly look forward to this Outdoor Discovery Center and what they're going to do and what they come up with. And, we're depending on you to coordinate with us.
Just don't budget based on it.
Yeah, no, we won't budget based on anything. We won't budget until we actually see them.
But I want to commend you and the Parks Commission. I went to the meeting, I guess, 2 weeks ago. He's just a whole new energy and responsibility and vision, forward thinkingness. And I applaud you for that. And I think we're finally at a point where you guys have done better just how you ask for money and what the realities are. And it's exciting. It's great.
Yeah, we've got some good folks, some, folks with a lot of experience. And I feel like we have a good group and we can move forward. And Becky Israel, trying to work with her behind the scenes, she's trying to help us with some of the, our bylaws and some of that. And but it takes some of the urgency that we had talked about before is sort of gone away. So we can proceed at a.
Well, we're here to support you. We can say no, but we're also here to support you.
Yeah. So I think this new arrangement, how we do the budget will work, and
I do too.
We're looking forward to it.
Cool.
Can I ask one quick question?
Yes.
This is, anyway, is our dog park, I keep meaning to go over there, it's not far from my house. Is it completely fenced in? Okay, and has there ever been any thought of making one area small dogs and one large?
It is.
Oh, it is? Because I heard,
Yeah.
I heard people say, I didn't
Yes.
realize it, okay.
Yeah, we had, yes, we have a small dog area, and then we had, when it originally was laid out, there's an area that was gonna be like a special use. If somebody wanted to have a party with their dogs,
Oh,
they
right.
could, sort of reserve that area. It's never used. So we've talked about opening the fence and expanding the small dog area. Now, the problem we have is because it's really sandy there and sandbur, and the weeds grow a lot faster than the grass grows. And that particular weed that produces those little sandburs can be hard on the little dogs.
Oh, yeah, they are.
We've tried not to spray it with Roundup. I walked around when we talked. I was able to dig up a lot of sandburs. They're pretty easy to find, and I have them in my yard and I hate them, and I always dig them up whenever I find them. So probably with a little maintenance, we can manage that problem. It was just something that, we really hadn't paid any attention to until the crisis happened. Yeah, so we do have a small dog area. And anyway, one thing that's worth you guys hearing, I was out there the other day and there was a fellow there with his dog. And I said, we're getting ready to work our budget. Do you have any ideas? And he said, I've been to dog parks all over the state. He said, this is the best dog park I've been to.
Wow.
And he said, I can't really think of anything. And then he said, well, the one thing I could think of, it would be nice if you expanded the concrete pad where the water is, and we had a little spray. He said, because I often have to take my dog home and wash them all before I bring them to dog shower. So when we turn the water back on, we can add a spray, and maybe this summer we can expand that concrete pad and make it even more friendly.
Just curious, has anybody ever done a water feature for dogs to like wade in? I don't know if that's a thing or not, but I know my dog would love that. Yeah.
I know, and there's one in downtown Zealand that just opened, that water feature.
Oh, does there? For dogs?
Well, it's not for dogs.
Oh, the
it's
splash
for
pad,
little
yeah.
people.
Little people.
But it would be the same idea, and you can see it could be a maintenance nightmare,
Yes. Yes.
idea.
Yeah.
And then the drainage and
Yeah.
septic and
Yeah.
all that, so it would be nice.
Yeah.
but
Well,
We may just
didn't know
do
if
it
anybody
in
ever did that,
hose,
you
with
know?
just, rinse them off, dry them and take them home.
That's a good idea.
Thanks,
Great,
Jim.
thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Jim.
Emergency Services Committee.
I can make a tiny little comment on that. I talked with Mr. Schiffa, I think last week and probably the week before that, and there's a concern that he's working on that hasn't quite come to the surface because he's just being very process oriented, and I just continue to be impressed with his professionalism in gathering information before he makes a statement about something. So he's doing a great job, and we're lucky to have him.
Excellent. And we have our interurban board report in written format. Recycling committee.
One tiny note,
Yes.
Mayor Lewis and City Manager Heiss and I are meeting this coming Wednesday to discuss drafting a new resolution that will be presented to all of the communities to reestablish the recycling committee.
Great, good news.
Okay. Coordinator report.
It might have been a little late, so I don't know if it's in everybody's packet. But first of all, I wanted to say thank you everybody for making this transition so easy and enjoyable. Everybody has been fantastic, and I'm feeling the love, and I feel very proud to be able to represent this board. I think you're all fantastic, and so I'm very excited to be in this position. Transitioning from that, I do have kind of an exciting update about one of our own staff members who you might notice is present. We've decided that it might be best if Jennifer from now on do the minutes and run the technology for both the board meetings and for planning commission. And I actually think that this is a great move. I think it's working towards your strategic goal of excellence and becoming more professional, that we have a staff member take on the responsibility of doing minutes. It can be very, as a person who did the minutes for the planning commission, it can be very distracting to be doing the minutes in the middle of a meeting. I think it takes away from your capacity to really deliberate. So the fact that we have somebody who will be doing them and producing quality minutes that we can go back and we can look at without you having to worry about it is a huge win. We decided the best way to compensate for this activity would be through overtime pay. So we did discuss a few other options, but moving forward, we don't know if our meetings are going to be short. We don't know if they're going to be long. And we thought the best and the most fair way to compensate for doing the minutes would be to do it hourly at overtime pay. So that's a big change. So that's that. Previous meetings, you did make a motion to have the manager come up with a payment plan for 236 Culver LLC. I was able to, so right now, they are behind on their 2021 payment plan. They're owing right now $18,145.06. I did contact the owner, and we did discuss it. At this point in time, he was not able to commit to a regular payment plan each month, but he did commit to me that he would pay some amount each month with the goal of paying it totally off by June 30th, which is the end of our fiscal year. So he did understand that. He thought that was feasible. So I thought that was a happy medium, that we get money each month. We don't know exactly how much it would be. Some might be, smaller, some might be bigger, but that he recognized that we would like to see it paid off by June 30th, and he did agree to that.
Thank you for doing that.
My pleasure, my pleasure. I do have an update on the 62nd Street Special Assessment District for the extension of municipal water. We did meet with our engineer, Supervisor Osman, and Treasurer Helmrich was present. And we decided, based on the recommendation of our engineer, that we were going to move forward with the bidding process and the securing of the permits simultaneously. The engineer thought that this was totally doable and that it would save a lot of time and that the project could be done by late June, early July. And that would make the property owners happy in doing so. So we're moving ahead with that plan. The bids are out. The permitting process has started with the Allegan County Road Commission. So we should be receiving sealed bids on March 1st and then have something to present to the board for the March 9th meeting. So things are moving along with that.
I know this is so out of context, but you said 62nd.
66th Street.
Thank you.
I do have an update on River Bluff Park shoreline. So Dana, our engineer, put together a fabulous grant application to do a shoreline restoration study for the shoreline along River Bluff Park. There is a pool of money that was established and funded by companies that have been polluting the Kalamazoo River. NOAA is overseeing the disbursements of those funds, and they saw the grant from Dana and they flagged it as a priority project. Wow. So it's kind of a big deal. So we did sit down with NOAA and we discussed it, and we also sat down with NIFWIF, which is the National Fish and Wildlife Association, something like that. And they were very excited about it. So we just have to kind of finalize this grant. So I have access to the portal where all the information is. Dana shared everything with me. So in the next few weeks, we're going to be finalizing that grant and submitting it. It's not a done deal, but we look like we're in a pretty good position to get a grant to do a feasibility study for a shoreline restoration project there.
That's great.
And kind of in conjunction with that and parks, we did put out an RFP this week for a proposal for a master plan for the dog park and the vacant lot that's attached to it. This is owned by the township. I want to say it's approximately 30 acres, but there's been a lot of talk about perhaps developing it as a cross-country course. And so Parks has taken that next step to put out an RFP to see if an engineering firm could come up with a master plan for that site. So that's submitted, and we are awaiting receipt of any bids on that. In the area of enforcement, we're continuing to get complaints about a trucking business that's operating out of a household on, this is actually, no, it is 66th Street. So it's on the south side of the Kalamazoo River. Planning Commission had an application before them for a special approval use for a home occupation about this time last year. And it wasn't really a home occupation. It did not fit our definition. It was actually a trucking operation that was operating outside of the home. We denied it. They've continued to operate. We've continued to get complaints. Zoning Administrator Wells has been on top of this, has issued them letters to no avail. So I am having a meeting with Zoning Administrator Wells and our attorney, Nick Curcio, on the 15th to discuss this issue and next steps that we could take, because we do find that, or do feel that this is potentially hazardous. In that application to planning, we did identify that they had fuel tanks on the property without any appropriate permitting. We didn't know where they came from. We didn't know what they were housing. So there's a lot of concerns with that site. So we really want to follow up because they don't have municipal water out there. And if anything were ever to leak and contaminate the groundwater, we'd have a huge problem. So we're really going to follow through with that. The second item in enforcement, we did receive an invoice for the cleanup of a property on Old Allegan Road. The cleanup didn't actually happen because there was a little bit of a administrative error. There was costs associated with that we knew beforehand, so we're gonna go ahead and pay for that. But I did ask them to give me a formal proposal and quote, which they did get to me today. So we know kind of exactly what we're expecting, and we're a little more comfortable if they send us another invoice and exactly what we're getting billed for. That's not going to go forward. That cleanup project can't go forward in the winter, but it will occur in the springtime. So we're kind of all ready for that. I do still have to coordinate it with the sheriff's office, but we have a lot of time before that happens. In terms of building maintenance, there were a lot of things that came up. We had our annual fire inspection. We did really well. We only had one ticket item, which was the certification of our fire extinguishers, which occurred. We had one that required some maintenance. It is out right now, so we have a loaner that should be coming back shortly, and then we can call the fire department back and get approval for our annual inspection.
Maybe they'll bring the key back.
I think the fire extinguisher company stole that. Yeah, maybe they will.
Thank you, Jim, for saving us on that.
Yes, thank you, Jim. Yeah. Something to note that's probably gonna go in the budget. They did note that our defibrillator, it's fine, but they don't make it anymore, nor do they supply any of the replacement parts. So if anything were to go wrong, it's just useless. So they recommended purchasing a new one for next year. They said that we could purchase it through them at a discounted rate. So that's something that we're gonna go include in the budget.
Okay.
The other thing is I received a lot of complaints about the exterior lighting here. We have lights out in the front, we have lights out on the side. The lighting is very dim, posing safety concerns. Safety is part of your strategic goal. So I did go ahead and call an approved vendor to discuss perhaps upgrading our lighting system. So Bob Firmus came out, we talked about getting lights at a higher wattage, but a warmer light. We also found out that we were not compliant with state law because we do not have a light illuminating our notice board. So we talked about installing that. Bob said it wouldn't be a problem. We also talked about a downward facing light that was shielded. So we're gonna get an upgrade to all the lights. Everything's gonna be replaced. It's gonna be brighter, it's gonna be warmer, but it's all dark sky compliant. So it's compliant with our own ordinance. So that's happening. I got the bid and everything, signed it. So we're just waiting for him to actually come out and do the work. Another thing that came to my attention from the clerk and deputy clerk is that we might think about dual electronic polling books for the elections. It might make the process a little more efficient, be able to move people quicker. That would require the purchasing of a new laptop. I did find our technology inventory list, and I talked to IT Right. The current laptop that we have for elections is old. It doesn't have that much more to go, about a year. And the feeling from the clerk and the deputy clerk is that elections are very important and that it might be prudent to just purchase 2 new laptops. This would be in time for the August election. This is something that we could do right away if we wanted to, but it's also something that could very well, be integrated into the budget for this coming year, and then we could purchase them and have them all ready for the August election. So I think we're still kind of figuring out what we want to do in terms of that, but I did get a quote from IT Right for $1,450. That might change because time goes on. But it's possible. It's something that we could work into the budget, and I think it would be a great addition to elections and make us again look a little more professional. So there's that kind of housekeeping. And then finally, a reminder that we do have a board workshop that's gonna be held on February 16th, 11 a.m. here at the Township Hall, and I'll be getting out agendas for you all. But if you do have ideas for what should be included, definitely reach out and I'll include those items.
Thank you, Daniel.
My pleasure.
Any questions for Dan? Jill,
I have a quick question, Madam Chair.
go ahead.
Could we have an approximate 20-second recess so I can text my son to go pick up my other son?
Go ahead.
I know texting is not allowed during meetings, but we're on recess. Thank you. I appreciate your flexibility. Always racing the clock.
So this is recess, right?
Yes,
I can say something, right?
yes.
Thank
Oh,
you.
Wait a minute, this should be an open meeting if you're gonna say something.
I'll say my comments.
All right. There.
Thank you. So the recess has ended. And we're ready for open board report. So we'll go around the table. Mr. Henry?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would first like to thank wholeheartedly and applaud Mr. DeFranco for, I think, an amazingly great first report and welcome you. I think we all share some of the sentiments you shared with us. And it's been an amazing 3 weeks and a lot is getting taken care of. So thanks. I'll just underscore, we had back and forth, feedback on the workshop. We did decide to stick with next Wednesday, the 16th, 11 to 1, keep it for 2 hours, not do a weekend and not address. This is not pre-budget planning.
Okay.
We've got time for that and we'll do that separately. This is more revisiting, reminding ourselves of where we are with the strategic plan. And I also want to have sort of a very open roundtable discussion on what might we use our ARPA funds for. We have 5 years to spend them. We've only received half of them. And there's a filing deadline in April, but my understanding is it's pretty simple because we haven't decided anything and we haven't spent anything, but it's a federal requirement. So that's next week. And then another update, we had a very interesting, a bit dry meeting last week here. We had the 3 representatives from MDOT. This was a response to our request to Representative Whiteford to help us with noise mitigation. So they came down, they're all based in Grand Rapids. Daniel and I were at that meeting. We had John Vanderbeek there because he created that first map. I think the upshot is if we want some trees planted to help with sound, we're probably going to have to pay for them. But they suggested they have a guy in Grand Rapids that specifically does the tree kind of projects. So now that they've met us, they're happy to let us deal with him directly. We'll have him down. You know, I forget, there were 6 spots, I think, on that map that we were wishing for. And their recommendation was we'll pick 1 or 2. So we're going to move forward, just get idea costs and maybe they'll help pay. We don't know. But we did finally get connection and our letter got not swift response, but these things take time and we'll keep everyone updated.
Can I ask John a letter? Or
No, send it to him.
I was wondering if you talked to them about the mumble strips or mumble strips. What did they say about that?
Kind of turned out to be not that accurate.
That they're not too close to the line.
Right, and what I heard them say was, well, there really is no such thing as a mumble versus a rumble.
Oh.
It's rumble or nothing, and and it's an interstate highway, so they're set by federal standards.
Okay.
So they did address it, they're aware, but but maybe some trees would help and support our tree ordinance and other work we're aiming to do. It's a good question.
John,
You're welcome.
Stacy,
I also have down to welcome Daniel, and you're doing a great job, and I'm so impressed so far and happy of what you've accomplished, and thank you for joining the team. And I think it's a great idea to have Jennifer do the minutes, and I hope she's happy with that arrangement, because it's a lot of work, and you know, it's not the most exciting job, but we appreciate that you will do that for us. I got a call from Chief Janik the other day, and he said that he didn't know if we were aware that our smoke alarms are not monitored. And he's strongly suggests that we have a monitor system, just because something goes on at 2 a.m, there's nobody here to hear it, and we have so many documents and papers. So I don't know if that would be what we, you know, go through the remodel process, or we do that beforehand. But if you want, I could try to check into that and see, you know, what that would, I know that Elliot has that through his company.
So what exactly is it?
It would be if a smoke alarm went off and called the fire department.
So, but it's a connection.
It's a
that's made-
connection, because right now it would be ringing all night long and nobody's here to hear it, you know.
Well, it sounds like they're doing public
It's
safety issue.
kind of surprising that it wasn't monitored, you know, so I feel it's sort of important, so I think we should move on that if everyone agrees or whatever. So.
it would be nice to get a ballpark figure on how much. it would
Yeah.
cost.
Yeah. Would you like me to do that? Okay.
The cost, it's come down on that type of thing with the technology and fancy. So it should be too, right?
And it might not have to wait.
I think it's,
It
when he
probably
said that,
shouldn't,
it
but
really
let's-
kind of surprised me we were.
let's-
You know, so I'm glad he
Get a
mentioned
cost
that.
idea.
Just like an election state.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Just,
Oh, my gosh.
you don't want to wait till
Don't you
something.
wanna think
is
about it?
wrong.
Okay, I'll get on that then this week,
Okay,
so.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you, Stacy. Brenda,
I knew John was gonna steal my thunder. No, my comments, I'm kidding.
Oh.
So 3 weeks,
Oh,
I'm amazed, and I really appreciate everything you've done. And I was gonna ask you how you did it, but that's okay, I don't wanna know. So I wanted to thank you, that's it. And then Jennifer too, I'm really glad you're doing this. It's impossible to attend a meeting and take minutes. Well, it's not impossible, but you have to choose where you're gonna focus.
something suffers.
Something, that's right. So that is all I want to thank you. You've done a great job in 3 weeks. I know I could have done it. So, thank you.
Yes, Daniel, thank you. We're so fortunate to have you, and you just, I mean, we all knew you ahead of time and kind of knew your work ethic, and you were well connected with everybody, but even with that, it's just really impressive, and we're just really fortunate. So,
Thank you.
Do another 3 weeks.
Oh, you know. I'm having fun.
We are too.
I've already said it to you, thank you, and how appreciative we are that you're doing this and how you're willing to really step up and make it your life, because it will be your life. And
Oh, yeah.
but no, I'm really impressed as well. We're really thankful that you accepted the position, so.
Thank you. Thank you for offering it.
I don't think I have anything else. So, public comments.
No,
You just gave
can
us
I
a
make a
lot.
comment? Can I make a comment?
Yes.
I again would like to thank Daniel. No, not only as a township resident, but also as an employee of the township. I didn't realize how unnecessarily stressful the environment was until it wasn't. And really, I mean, thank you to the board for seeing even what we didn't see. We felt it, but we didn't see it. So I just want to say thank you to everybody.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
Mr. Siri?
Just one comment about the security. I've seen these guys bring some heavy duty weapons in here. So they must have some pretty good security. They unload
Well,
their
this is
cars.
just a smoke alarm. So I mean, if there was a fire in the basement
We
with
would
all
know.
those files and
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah.
you know, nobody would,
Oh,
they would never
Yeah.
hear that.
But do they
I-
have, do they have ammunition over there? And then what happens if there's a fire there and there's ammunition?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, I see.
I believe they
Yeah.
unload their cars and bring this stuff.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
in the
you mean that
morning,
could be
before
blown
when
up?
they fix it,
Yikes.
they don't
Yeah.
take everything home.
We gotta get on this.
So you should.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Yeah.
Okay. I don't think we even need a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, I don't think we do anymore, do we?
No, I can just adjourn the meeting, so meeting adjourned.
Yes.
59.
We did, we're getting there.
We'll work on it.
Yeah.
I like to hope you get all of those all the time.